Howdy, I'm Derek, and today I want to share with you 5 super helpful number format tricks in Excel that you can use to make your files look awesome and more clear than ever before. Number formats are extremely flexible, and if you know some of the options, you can do some really cool things with them. And I'll admit, I didn't even know most of these things until a couple of years ago, and I've used Excel for 22 years now or so. Note that number formats are for display purposes, so the raw value does remain unchanged, and if you're ever curious, just set it to general, then you'll know what the raw value is, or you can see it up in the formula bar. All right, let's get started. The first trick is using colors in your number formats. You can use up to 56 different colors within the number format components. So if you're seeing the code here on the right, that color 10 is in the first component. When I say components, there's a positive, a negative, a 0, and a text component. You can learn more about those with one of the tools I've referenced in the comments below. But color can be defined within multiple of those when you put it within brackets and put the word color and then one of those codes. So 10 happens to be green, 3 happens to be red, and you can see how for a 1 or a negative 1 here, we've got some other stuff going on with the formatting of the currency sign and the placement and all that. But color is something you can use to identify good and bad or variance, green being positive, red being negative is a really pretty common one, but it works really well for that. I previously used conditional formatting to accomplish this, but I find number formats to be a little bit easier, and if you're unfamiliar, remember that those semicolons there are what separate the positive, negative, and 0 and text values. Okay, so really useful. Use colors. Don't go crazy, but use them consistently and maybe define what those are to people. The second trick is using symbols. Okay, so you can put arrows is something I'm starting to do a lot more now. You can put emojis in here or something else that might be similar. Again, the idea is to add clarity to the numbers that you are displaying within your files. So as opposed to just having percentage, I like to add the up or down when I'm doing a variance between periods or by budget actual or something like that. The emojis is probably more for fun, but hey, you can do it. So there's that. And remember, you can also combine these things. So in the bottom floor, I've added those colors from before, as well as the symbols. And the two right here with the arrows, those are two of my favorite ways to display percentages because it makes it very obvious to the user if it's positive, negative, better, worse, or whatever it is that you're trying to communicate. Okay, so don't be afraid to combine those. The third one is conditions. Now this is definitely a new one for me when I learned it a year or two ago. I didn't realize you could do any conditions in here. I thought it was just positive, negative, etc. But you can put basic conditions. So if you're seeing what we're doing here, we're actually combining a couple of things. If it's over 1,000, okay, that's within the brackets, then we want to color it 3 being what? Green, I guess. And then we want to give it the comma, etc. Well, in this case, it's not over 1,000, and it's not less than negative 1,000, so it's really just left to pretty basic formatting. But then when we get over to this one, it is, because it's over 1,000, or it's under. So we're applying those colors, as well as all the other formatting, like the placement, the comma for thousands, etc. And then down below, we've done the same thing, but we've made a different condition for just 3 digits for 100 or less than a negative 100. So you can do some pretty basic conditions with this. Anything more advanced, you would definitely want to use conditional formatting. But for pretty simple stuff, this is easy. And I found it is quicker to calculate when you have a whole bunch of numbers in your workbook. Now, just note that instead of positive, negative, and everything, those semicolons are going to separate 3 conditions, technically 4. So the first condition and another condition and then kind of an else condition, and then you can still do text at the very end. So again, conditions pretty helpful. We're combining those with colors. You could also add some symbols if you wanted to. So very helpful. The fourth trick is rounding. Now, I'm a big fan of adding rounding within workbooks because the less things, the less information, and I'm talking even down to the digit that people have to process in their head, the quicker it's going to be for them and the less errors are going to make in kind of interpreting that. Okay, so we're doing a couple of different types of rounding here. In the case of the first couple, we're rounding and displaying those zeros. So our raw number here is, notice it's the same if you look in the formula bar at the top. Here's unformatted, here's formatted. We're just rounding to the nearest thousandth place. And we're doing that by adding the comma 000 to the positive part as well as the negative part. Really, the only difference is adding a dash for negatives. The other way that you can do that is instead of displaying the zeros, you can display the K. Okay, so the only difference here is instead of 3 zeros, you're seeing a K right there for both parts. You can also round to millions, and the way that we're doing that is we're adding two, notice those 2 commas right there, and then basically we're adding text within those quotes for the commas and the millions to display all those zeros. Okay, and the other way you can do this, if we kind of scroll or navigate down here, is instead of those zeros, we can display an M for millions. Okay, so pretty useful when you do that. Now, you can also just display without that text. So if you're going to display something like this without the K, just make sure if you're rounding in this way, not having to do any formulas, that's why I like this approach, because it makes it a little easier. If you're doing that without an indicator like a K or the zeros, make sure to put some kind of indication of how you've rounded, maybe in the comments or like the cell headers, column headers, etc. Okay. And then lastly, similar to symbols, you can do phrases. I really like to do this when you're showing dates and weeks and some type of counting. So notice here we've got the unformatted one week. So we wanted to say if it's condition here of 1, make it say week. If it's more than that, then make it say weeks. Or we could just say this way we've got a 4, so it's the same code but just different value. Or you can just put 1 and put an S within the parentheses. So really cool to do that. I've worked with some goofy fiscal calendars, so we had to have 4 weeks, 5 weeks, kind of like that, and that was really helpful to put at the top. But because we wanted to add all that to see if it was a 52 or 53 week year, we still wanted to have the raw value be a number, right? And we didn't want it to be bunch of text that was going to throw that off. That's the cool thing about doing these creative formats, is you can still add and do math on all of these numbers even when they're formatted. It doesn't change anything. It's just the display purpose. So here we've got some fractions, and then down below we've got the degree symbol and add an F to it. You do stuff like that. So there you have it, 5 really cool, helpful tricks, but wait, there's more. If you really find it helpful to have a bunch of these codes, so I would definitely recommend having a library of these different codes we've looked at. So maybe one like the rounding, the conditions, the symbols, all the different codes that I've got in here. By the way, you can download this workbook here and with the accompanying article reference at the link below, in the comments below. The other thing I'd recommend doing is having a library of all of these codes. And if you have something like that where you can copy and paste it, or I find it's even easier, I'll show you an example here. Just putting in some numbers here so we can apply it. Okay, there's a number format. So I'm going to search number formats. That's another kind of tool I've got that I use a lot. So you just have to search for whatever label you've given them. So if I wanted to say percent, arrows, percentage, something like that, let's use this one right here, okay? And instantly, it applies that number format. You don't have to go type it in. You don't have to go to the settings to do it. It's using a library to power that. So pretty darn cool. Just have to give them labels and have a library of them that you can leverage that quickly, okay? If you want to learn more about number formats and all the different things that make them up, we covered some of the things, but if you really want to learn more, then in the comments below, I've linked to a great workbook that explains everything. It includes 50 examples that you can use, very much like these and more, for that library of yours. Okay, so make sure to grab a copy of that. And if you want to use that search box I just went through and hundreds of other tools that save you a lot of time in Excel, then check out the XLEV8 Excel add-in. You can go to the apps section at www.XLEV8.co, or I'll put a link in the comments below as well to that. And if you enjoyed this, please give it a like, comment with what you enjoyed the most, tag or share with one of your friends, and of course, subscribe so you don't miss out on other awesome tools, tips, and tricks. Thanks for watching, and have an excellent rest of your day.